Sip. hmm Oh, tea is good for you. Delicious and nutritious people of the world. Hello and welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language, episode 191. Our guest on the show today is a very creative mind. Do you understand me? Creative, not just in the sense of sort of, I'm creative. No. Imagine sitting down before your husband wakes up, before your kids wake up, and deciding to write yourself a book. Imagine having an idea while you're in corporate America to create a wreath using burlap. You ever made a burlap wreath? Have you? Have you really? Our guest today has. She posted said burlap wreath onto the Facebook, and guess what? People loved it. They enjoyed it. They shared it. And before you knew it, she had a whole community of people asking for kits, asking for tutorials and that sort of thing. She is the essence of entrepreneur, as far as I can tell. She is actually not on book one, but book numero dos, which is very exciting. She's absolutely killing the game. Coming to us from Kentucky, ladies and gentlemen, our guest on the show today, Stephanie Feger.
Hey, how are you?
I am delightful.
Should I say, how are all y'all so that you get the full Southern drawl from Kentucky?
You know what? I appreciate it. You do you, Stephanie. You do you. So, as we talked about backstage, we're looking for that life story. Did I get anything wrong in the intro? Was all of that accurate information?
It was accurate. And it's funny hearing someone else say it because I think, oh my gosh, creativity has been in my bones for a long time.
You know, when you were a young girl, you stitched together cotton and cloth to make a doll.
Yeah, it was just recently my mom was going through some of my stuff from when I was a kid. Either she was or it was in my memory box or something. But my daughter and I uncovered this doll, which I giggle at now, but my daughter thinks it's the coolest thing ever. Because she asked me one day, Mom, can you sew? I'm like, I can't sew. And then I found this doll and I sewed it out of fabric and cotton. I mean, it's not like today where there was a tutorial to show you what to do. There was none of that. It was just my imagination.
hmm And so, at a very young age, you felt the desire, not monetary, mind you, but just soul centric desire to create something and without any sort of tutorial to do so. And now you're on book number two. So, let's say you weren't able to create for whatever reason. Do you think that's a ridiculous, even imagined scenario because you will always find a way to create?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I have a friend of mine, and he will occasionally text me and say, "Stephanie, what's going on in your life?" I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because I don't see any of your blogs. I don't see any of your creative work. Something's going on. Are you out of kilter?" And usually when he messages me, I'm like, "Yeah, like something's not right." And it's because I'm not taking a moment to figure out how to be creative. And I've come to learn that creative isn't just watercolor and canvas. For me, creative is working in the garden. It's doing school with my kids. It's writing. It's making wreaths. It's creating some new decor for our home. Something. It's gifting to people. It's coming up with birthday experiences. Oh, that's my favorite, actually. But it's figuring out how to think not I don't wanna say outside of the box, it's actually throwing the box away and just thinking different altogether. If I'm not doing that, then I'm not in the right space, like, something's wrong and I need to get back to it quickly.
And this particular friend of yours is able to discern from the outside when you're out of balance.
Yeah, he's actually a previous client of mine, and I don't know how he can pick up on it, but he does. And every time he's like, "Stephanie, you need to go write something. Have you made something lately?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I need." So yeah, a life without creating in some form or fashion, whether that's in business, with my family, just myself, it's kind of like how my soul works. I think it's how many of ours works. It's just we don't always take time to do it, right? We're so focused on the bottom line or time management or what the rest of the world thinks we're supposed to do. If you just pause and create, what I found is it allows me to put aside. So while I'm making a wreath, it's so monotonous that I can put aside all of the worries that I have, my to-do list, all that stuff. And instead I can focus on bigger picture. And I usually walk out of it with a newfound idea for my business or a new perspective on something that's been heavy or a new direction that our family can go down or something new that I want to try. But if I'm not creating, my brain can't capture that. And that's why I think honestly, everyone could do it. And that's why I started to do what I call it creative therapy workshops with clients and businesses where we create together whatever that creative element looks like and is appropriate for that group. We create together, and through that process we start to dissect what are the areas of opportunity in our life that we can grow from.
Mm. It seems as though we live in a chaotic universe when, in fact, we don't. And I often find that the obstacles in front of us are physical manifestations of the internal world. Those
Mhm.
two worlds are always in some sort of harmony or some sort of there's a connection always between those two worlds. So the object in front of me is a reflection in some, because again, I can't look at anything external and not place my perception onto it. There's a line from a gorilla song that's really good where the artist says, "You see with your eyes, you perceive with your mind."
Mm, that's beautiful and so spot on. So spot on. I always say that there's 2 stories out there. There's the story that lives within you, and then there's the rest of the story that everyone sees outside, right? And
Oh.
when you right? And when you can align your internal story with the reality of what the rest of the world sees, or shift what the rest of the world sees to better align with who you really are inside, that's where the harmony can come. Too many times we struggle trying to do both. And if those stories aren't in unison, um, then there's major disconnect.
Hmm. So you are incarnated on planet Earth, in Kentucky.
In Kentucky, right outside of Louisville, and on a 25-acre farm. My husband and I live on a farm with our 3 kiddos.
So you were born in Kentucky?
I was born and raised, yeah, born Kentucky, went to school in Kentucky, went to college in Kentucky, met my husband in Kentucky. We thought about moving to Southern Indiana for a hot minute, and then we decided we needed to stay in Kentucky.
For one hot minute.
Just a hot minute.
So you were raised by humans, most
Mhm.
likely.
Yeah.
Who are those humans?
My mom and dad, they're pretty fantastic. And I'm an only child. So they raised me. But one thing that I love about how they raised me is they didn't, whereas I had a childhood, they invited me into their world, right? So there wasn't this separation of you're the kid, we're the parents. It's we're in this together. And it's funny, I had a friend the other day say, well, how can you talk about those heavy topics with your kids now? And I'm like, huh? And I realize it's because, oh, well, that's how my mom and dad, talked to me. There was no need to sugarcoat or anything. You could just have really honest conversations because everyone was respected in the house. So I
Hmm.
love my mama and daddy.
Okay. And they're still with us?
They are still with us. Yep. My mom and dad are, and they're a really big part of my life.
Okay. So you're quite young when you're not sewing together cloth and cotton to create dolls. Are you friendly? Are you extroverted? How are you as a
You know,
kiddo?
as a kid, I was really shy and quiet, which is funny because if you know me now, you can't get me to shut up. Um, I remember being really shy and I was thinking maybe I was like 5 or 6 years old, and my mom and dad were like, "We have got to get her out of her shell." like she's got to talk to people. So they put me into modeling, which is I giggle at this now because I'm 5'2", freckled face, and they gave me a perm, so my hair was like curly and big, and those big '80s bangs and whatever. So they put me in modeling, and it would not to be a model. No, that was not on my to-do list. But instead, there was an acting component to it. So they put me into the program that allowed me to do some stage commercials in front of groups just to get outside of myself. I still remember those commercials, by the way, which is either proof that it was awesome or was traumatic. It was one of the two, probably both. But that was the beginning, I think, of me gaining confidence in who I was and being unapologetic about it, but doing that in a way where it comes through a lens of kindness and authenticity. And I think that's probably at the heart of who I am.
So modeling
Yeah.
as a young girl in Kentucky
Mhm.
involves going into a physical space and getting your picture taken, or going to like events?
Oh, well, so how it worked back then is there was an agency that had a physical building, and you would go and you would learn how to do this. You would learn how to do and be in front of camera. You would learn how to stand appropriately, how to walk the runway. All of it I giggle at now because I'm like, I would never put my daughter through that now. She'd probably love it, by the way. But how do you have poise and confidence when you're on a stage? And I'll tell you, I remember so when you partner with an agency, then you get into a book. And in that book, then if someone needs a model for whatever reason, they look through the book and find you. And I think I only had like one or two people who picked me, which honestly was quite devastating as a kid.
Mm.
Could have had some long-term repercussions, but because the one that I remember did a face-to-face with, where they interviewed me to see if I was a good fit. They were like, "You're too short, your hair's too dark, your eyes are too," I mean, like things that I couldn't control about who I was. Um,
Mm.
was very I remember that moment was very frustrating, but if I hadn't gone through that experience, I would never have met my acting coach. And my acting coach turned into a long term friend of mine who coached me for years and actually inspired theater in me. And that was something I thought I was always going to grow up and move to California and um, be on the big stage. And all of these things were a part of my long term goal. However, I could never get rid of the country accent, and I knew that was really important in the process. Um, so I didn't do that, and actually, I ended up having that be like a catalyst for me to be comfortable in front of TV and comfortable on different types of stages, which has evolved into my PR and marketing career.
So PR and marketing is advertising, which comes from the Latin advertere, which means to turn toward, which is a verbose and long-winded way of saying getting attention. And at a young age, you were placed into a situation where that was the primary driver that was the point, at least of modeling, was get attention, get people's attention, get the attention of the agents, get the attention of, get their attention. And as a single, I shouldn't say single, as a, what's the word to describe one kid family?
Oh, and only.
Only is the word I'm searching for. Thank you, Stephanie. As an only child, you did get a lot of attention
Yep.
from the parents, who you love very much, obviously. And so you have taken that life experience and made it possible to help promote businesses, and folks who have written a book. So let's connect the dots on those two things. So the little girl standing, doing the modeling thing, and the mother entrepreneur who is helping businesses. How do those two worlds collide? Are you there, Stephanie? I think we may be having internet connectivity issues. Well, it appears as though our good friend Stephanie has ventured by way of disconnect. We will see if she hops back on. But while she's out, I will talk a little bit about attention and my thoughts on traversing that space. So, is she back? Oh, she says, I'm here. I can hear you. Unfortunately, Stephanie, we are unable to hear you at this point. We have lost your internet connection. So perhaps I will go off and on and see if that solves the problem. Yes, no, maybe so. No dice. Oh, there we go. I can hear you now. Maybe.
Okay. You tell me when I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Well, unfortunately, we lost you again, Stephanie.
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah, you're really choppy. You're coming in and out.
Am I back yet? Am you back now?
You want to try it again? I think I can see you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Now we're cooking with oil.
Okay.
All right, so let's connect the dots between model Stephanie as a young girl and entrepreneur Stephanie now.
Gotcha. So Stephanie as a young girl. Now a lot happened in between those years, but
Oh
Stephanie
yeah,
as a
I know, but I want to connect those two things
yes,
specifically.
yes. So I had to learn a couple of things to gain confidence on the stage. I had to learn that it isn't about me, even though it seems like it's about me. It isn't me. I had to learn how important it is to show confidence even if you aren't confident. So how can you fake it till you make it? I hate to say it that way, but you know, when you're extremely nervous, how can you shift that and allow it to have the adrenaline to push you to reach new levels? All of those types of things, getting on the stage at 5 years old, really are applicable today, right? As I help individuals, small businesses, and authors be seen in the chaos of all of the news that's going on right now, there's definitely an importance of integrating this level of confidence. A lot of the people that I get to work with are kind of newer in their industry, newer in their entrepreneurial direction, and many of them go, "Oh, but why would anybody buy anything from me?" It's like, well, why not? Stop. We have to gain that confidence first. And then you also have to realize it's not about you, it's about them. When I was up there doing my little commercial for like my 15-second commercial, as nervous as I was, of course, people were observing and watching me, but it was the point of the commercial that I was delivering. Same thing in your business, right? It's not about you. It's about what your target audience needs and how can you meet their needs in ways that they'll hear it. So yeah, who would have ever thought that when my mom and dad said, let's try modeling, that honestly, they were building a foundation for the evolution of my career.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think the fake it till you make it, it's a cliche for a reason. It's also kind of, sometimes I watch documentaries and there will be coaches. Last Chance You is a good documentary series on Netflix. And these coaches just yell at these kids, man. And by all stretches of the imagination, it's just verbal abuse. Right? It's just verbal abuse. And the kids struggle with it, obviously. And it's shocking to people outside of that culture. And you can look at it in a variety of ways. You can see it as that. You can just be like, it's verbal abuse. You shouldn't tolerate it and just get out of there. You can see it as love, which is like the coach is just desperately trying to make you into something that you are simply currently not right now.
Yep.
And then this fake it till you make it idea, I think on the one hand is psychologically devastating if the person can't handle that mentally. Because if you say to someone, fake it till you make it, and they're truly struggling and it's really hurting them to go through that, it's
Right.
not helpful at all.
Right.
To someone who can handle it mentally, make it through that sort of thing, fake it till you make it is great advice, because now you're actually doing the thing. And so what an interesting, experience you had. I would argue that worked for you, that the sort of, hey, I know this is uncomfortable, but do it anyway,
Mhm.
worked for young Stephanie. Is that true? Or did you really struggle through that? And now you're just glad that it's over and you're glad you went through it.
In the thick of it, I remember being like really uncomfortable. But then I started to reassess how I saw myself. And I was always an old soul. So you have to know that. I've always been a reflective type. Um, and then I started to find fun in it, and I realized that it wasn't so scary after all. Um, and I look back and I think, my parents tried sports, and that wasn't my gig, and they tried, all of these other different things, and it wasn't the right fit for me. But and while modeling wasn't, it was the door opener to theater and acting, which helped me in some, heavy times in my life when I felt like I didn't understand on. The ability to transport into the life of another helped me get through that. And so, in high school when I did theater, and, it was a lifesaver for me. So I look at that and I think there was so much that such a foundation that was built, but it also is proof that sometimes the things that you do and that you're pushed into may not be a good fit, but it might be the window to the next great fit. And kind of, might be there for a season to get you where you're supposed to go, and help you how it's supposed to at that time. So yeah, I think for me, it was definitely something that was fantastic. But I wouldn't put my daughter through it. Like, I'm not going to make you do that, girlfriend. We'll find something else. Of course,
Interesting.
the world is different now than back then, right? I mean, we live in a social media world now where what I went through was very little, but nowadays not getting a call or being picked up to do a modeling gig, could be downright devastating, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about your clients now. I don't want to pressure you to have to talk about one you can be vague about it. I understand the nuances of having clients, but walk me through a client you have now, what you do for them.
Yeah, so I tend to work about 90% with authors who are making a shift in their lives from what they did to this new space of what they want to do, and they use the authoring of a book as the catalyst to get there, to
Hmm.
positioning them as a thought leader. So there are several authors that I work with who always dreamed of being an author, and this is just super exciting, and they just want to publish a book. Then there's other people who I've worked with who have, a lot of clout and very well known in the industry and beyond, and this is just like the next best step. So several things that I do to help them is first, I'm a big believer in branding and story management and integrating the two of those. And while that seems simple to people in the marketing world, that's not simple to people who don't know marketing. So a lot of the authors I work with don't know. I mean, they might know their story, but they have not a clue what they're supposed to do. So I really help them unify that visible presence, that mentality, like we just said, the fake it till you make it. I'm not trying to help you fake it. I'm helping you make it. But in doing that, I'm helping the rest of the world understand that you are integrated with a unified message. So that is something that I usually start with. You have to get the foundation. Make sure that people have a strong foundation, and that they now build a platform, which is not something that many authors new in the industry know what to do. What is a platform? What does that look like? So figuring out, their digital presence. Another big component that I help a lot of authors do is actually launch their book. So in the 15 plus years that I had working in nonprofit and corporate and agency world, I got really strong in marketing and launching. And when I decided to launch my own book, my publisher approached me and said, "How do you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, "Girl, this is my life. Like, this is what I went to school for, not the book concept, the book or the launching of it." So I work usually on about a 3-month time span with a lot of authors and helping them launch their book so that they reach the people that need to hear it in ways that they need to hear it, and that their book can become something that can help push them to meet their goals moving forward. And then I have some authors, and this is where the small businesses also integrate. Of course, launching in your small business or your products and services all has parallels there. But then there's some that I work more on an ongoing basis where I help them with sustaining their presence, their visibility, and their marketing initiatives. So how do you create systems to make life work easier? How are you thinking in ways to reach your audience in taking the niche and niching it even more? Many people stop at, "Oh, here's my target audience." Well, how do you take that and break it down? So my brain is a very strategic brain, and I try really hard to help my clients work in ways that are cost effective, that are purposeful, and that help them achieve the goals that they're seeking.
Hmm. Shout out to Shrimp Breeder in chat. Good to see you, buddy. I used to stream chess on Twitch, and he was one of the folks I would always swing by. So good to see you, buddy. So I want to be a successful author. I wrote a book. Um, you get a handful of people who buy it, a handful of reviews on Amazon.com. You give it to people. It's in the trunk of your car. You know what I mean? You sign it. For me, it was a really great way. It was a great calling card, or a great business card. Like, I signed this book, I gave it to you. It also somewhat instantaneously proves to people that you know at least something.
Right.
You've dedicated at least a small amount of your life to understanding a topic, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But I think deep down in every author's heart, they really hope it's popular. They hope that a lot of people read it. So, young Stephanie stands on the stage, or her face is in the catalog. She wants to be picked. There's that desire to be popular from a young age, gets given the situation you put yourself in. Do you feel like you will at some point, or are you now massively successful, massively popular? Is that something that you want? And how bad do you want it? If you had a client that, sold 100,000 copies, if you yourself sold 200,000 copies, whatever, like, how important is that to you?
Not at all. And let me tell you why. Um, it's funny that you bring that up because you're right. Usually one of the first things I ask people who are on the verge of publishing or have published what their goals are. If their goal is fame, notoriety, I always kind of giggle to myself and say, "Okay, good luck." Great. In this world where anybody can publish a book, it's hard to break through. So, all right, let's dig deeper. So when I decided to write a book, first of all, I never wanted to write a book. So I never grew up wanting to be Stephen King or Jodi Picoult or, the author of the Twilight series. That was not in my bucket list. So when I decided that it was time to write a book, it was never about the fame. It was always about the impact. So my goal has always been how can I change the life of one person? I remember telling my husband when I decided to do this, and granted, he is very kind soul who goes down all of these creative rabbit holes that I do with ease and support. But I remember telling him, if I have 500 copies in my basement of this book and not a single person buys it, that's okay. Because to me, I have now proven to my kids, when you have a dream You figure out how to make it happen. I said, at the end of the day, I felt called to write this book. And if not a single person buys it, at least I will have proven to my kids that Mama figured out a way to create a business to help fund this dream of hers. And if I can do it, they can do it. Of course, that didn't happen. The book has had success, but I'll tell you, I will never forget this one particular moment where I'm like, I don't care if I sell another book. So there is a lady who had purchased a wreath of mine, which I don't even think we talked about the wreath business. We'll get there. But my wreath business was what helped fund the publishing journey of my book. So
Mm.
we had met. She bought a wreath, supported my cause, but I knew nothing else about her. I mean, we lived in the same area, but I didn't really know her. And I will never forget, she sent me a message in the middle of the night after reading my book. Now, you need to know a couple things
Mhm.
before I share this. There was a chapter that I wrote in my book that was really heavy. And I remember writing that chapter in the middle of the night. And it was something that had been sitting on my heart for over 20 years that I had never spoken of, but I felt like um, I needed to rid myself of the weight of it. So I remember writing it. I was pregnant, so I was emotional and had pregnancy insomnia and all this stuff. And after I wrote it, I remember the tears gushing and the weight lifted off. And then I remember thinking, you know, I hope that this chapter and the rest of this book has an impact on people in the middle of the night, like I wrote it in the middle of the night, right? And so, knowing that, fast forward, it was a couple months after the book came out. In the middle of the night, I got a message from this person who said, Stephanie, what you don't know about me is I was in a car wreck over the summer. And that car wreck has impacted me. I had to go to rehab and all this stuff. And I've been left now with this crazy anxiety. And
Mm.
in the middle of the nights is when it hits. And I felt the anxiety attack coming, and I grabbed my Kindle and I crawled to the closet, because closed and confined spaces make the biggest impact, or helps her to calm down a bit. And she said, your book was the book that was on my Kindle. And in 15 minutes reading your book, I found peace. Your book saved me. And I just sat there and I'm like, well, that's a big, I'm not sure if it's, in my mind, of course, this is how many people think, oh, I don't know if I did that much, but I will never forget her sharing that, thinking, yeah, maybe I didn't write my book for anybody else but for her. And if she is the only person who feels like she could get a grasp on life because of the words that I felt inspired to write about, then I don't have to sell another book. And I know that that's not how many authors look at things, but it is how I encourage most of my clients to look at things, saying, hey, the numbers will come. You will sell books. You will get speaking engagements. You will get clients. If that's your goal, however you want your business to go, it will happen. But you must start by focusing on impact. What is the value that you're giving? If you focus so much on the dollar and the bottom line, people see through that. If you just want the fame and fortune, most of the time the fame and fortune comes to the people who are least looking for it. But if you focus on the impact and you really care about that and you make strategic marketing moves from that, then you'll have success, more success than you know what to do with.
I'm supposed to host a show that talks about Instagram strategies,
Mm,
right? I'm supposed to sit here and ask you what the secret sauce is for marketing. How do you rank? What do you do to sell books? We're supposed to sit here and talk about
yeah.
what reels are effective and what aren't, and what the audience members can do for their own business marketing, and how can they change their lives, and da, 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 da. And there is just no part of my soul that gives a single F about any of that. What
Yeah.
I care about is the person that I'm talking to.
Mhm.
And the core of what I want from this show is for people to understand that relationship building is, and always has been, the core of advertising.
Yep. 100%.
We invented money. And it's just, it's just up to us how we determine who gets to spend other people's time,
Yeah.
because this is all money is. And so my thesis for this show is similar, or I'm reminded of it,
Mhm.
because I just want people to watch this and to listen to this and understand that what you just said, where you were kind of like, I could tell like the tears were coming up a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, is this not the core? Is this not the center of the wheel?
Yeah.
These actual stories from actual human beings. Like, if you want to go learn 10 things you should be doing on Instagram in 2021, bro, there's a million different people that'll tell you what, what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
we are not lacking for people who will do that for you. So I want something else.
Yeah.
So yes, what you just said resonated with me.
That's awesome. I mean, and that's when I work with my clients, that's usually where I start. I know what your goal is, but if you are only focusing on that, you're missing the whole point of why you spent so much time doing what you did. Or you'll get to a point, as I did with my wreath business, where you're just cranking out wreaths. Well, no, my wreath business was never about that. It was about creating something meaningful and custom for people to remember people they've lost, to be a gift and a love extension, right? Like if you focus too much on the metrics, then you've forgot why we're even living and what your purpose is in life. And I struggle with that sometimes, and that's why I tell many people I wrote my book for myself first. I mean, I did, and I still write for myself first, and then because I need it, and then if it inspires someone else and reminds them, hey, how do we keep things in check? Awesome. I'll tell you this. So I mentioned gardening earlier, that's a creative element of mine. This weekend, my husband and I have to get the garden ready. And there's so much, we can dissect so much about the gardening experience. That's actually book number 3 I'm working on right now. But this weekend, we had to put the manure on the garden,
Mhm.
right? Like to get it ready for growing season, we need to cover it in nutrients of stuff many people throw away. And I think there's so much relevance of that in our own lives, that the reality is when we're in the thick of some heavy things, that's where the beauty comes. That's where the purpose is, the challenge. I look back, if someone asked me, Stephanie, if you knew how long it would take and how much energy it would take to write your book, would you have done it? And I said, no, I would not have done it.
Mm,
I said, the beauty is I didn't know. And it's not that I wouldn't have done it because I wasn't happy with where it came. I wouldn't have done it because I would have talked myself out of how much energy when I had, 3 kids under the age of 3 trying to do
yeah.
this and work a 80-hour work week, and everything else I had to do. So no, it's focusing on your purpose first. What is that? What is your purpose? I mean, like I said, if I don't sell another book, I don't care, because I've made a difference in that person. And that's not true. I had a great speaking engagement that I did. And I remember having another mic drop moment there where someone stopped me in the hallway in tears, telling me how the message that I shared with them pushed them to speak up about something that they never would have spoken about before. And this connects to that really heavy chapter I was telling you about earlier. Something that I kept secret for 20 years, me talking about it made her talk about it. So think about the ripple effect of when you do something that's focused on your purpose, how you can make a difference in the life of one. And if you do it out of that one, that person makes a difference in the life of another. And as that extends, I'll sell more books. Great, wonderful. But it's not about the book. And I think too many authors focus on the book. It's not about the book. What's in the book? What's the message in the book? And how can that help somebody in their own life, whether it's personally or professionally, whether it's a self-help or a fiction book that allows them to be transported elsewhere into another story and get creative, whatever that purpose is, than it's bigger than this. It's not this. It's what's deeper in there. It's the purpose.
Yeah. Magic is real.
Yes.
Um, Literally wizards, writing down this magic spell, this magic tome.
Yeah.
It's the closest I've ever come to magic. I often refer to the internet and web pages and scrolling because it's literally a scroll. I look at web development as just wizardry, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I can't wait to tell my web developer, like, do you know that you're a wizard with a scroll? That's such a cool analogy. I love it.
I mean, literally, you can just see this wizard just scrolling through this magical, you know, and it's interactive. I mean, it is. 500 years ago, you show somebody a computer screen, they're like, what magic is this?
Yeah.
The fact that you and I can connect from Kentucky to Henderson, Nevada, and, you know, I have a call later with someone from Venezuela. You know, it's just amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, we went late, but I don't care. This is Marketing as a Foreign Language. You already knew that. Episodes available on iTunes, Spotify, and many other podcast platforms. These are among them. Streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Send It Rising Facebook page, Twitter, etc. The main hub is the YouTube channel. If you want to swing by, you can type in Marketing as a Foreign Language or Send It Rising Internet Marketing, the name of the company that I happen to own. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. It all helps with the algorithm. You guys know the song and dance. I, of course, want to leave Stephanie with the final word for today's show. What do you want to say to the fine folks, Stephanie?
Oh, gosh. You know, I say whatever your focus is, whether you're here listening because you're trying to grow your business, or whether you're here and you've stumbled upon it because the algorithms worked, why ever you're here, I want you to pause and evaluate what your purpose is and what your goals are, and toss away the goals that the rest of the world tells you should do, and focus on really, if today were your last day, what would feel the best in your heart? Where would you feel like you've made an impact?
And where can people find you?
You can find me at stephaniefeger.com. Stephanie, Feger.com. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of the fun ones. But if you go to the website, you'll be connected to all those.
All right, perfect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Stephanie. We would love to have you back on the show. And so hopefully we will work towards that end. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for today. We will see you next time.